Welcome to Mingling with the Municipality. I'm Doug Roxburgh, and as you know, once a month we sit down with local leaders and local organizations to discuss issues that affect our community of Wood Buffalo. Of course, you're free to ask your questions using the hashtag AskShawYMM via Twitter, or you can head to our Facebook page. Today we meet Glen Semanchuck from CEMA, and I'm going to get this wrong. You're going to have to help me out with this. It's the Cumulative Environmental Management Association. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so what is CEMA exactly?
Well, SEMA is one of those best kept secrets. It's an organization that represents a number of stakeholders from industry, government, Aboriginal groups, and nonprofit groups. And it has a direct influence on policy for environmental impacts on development of the oil sands.
So what are some of the goals and objectives that CEMA has?
Well, mainly our main objective is to be a trusted advisor to the regulators, the government regulators, so that when they are making policy for development in the oil sands, they are reflective of the people here. It's a real opportunity for people in Wood Buffalo to get an input into government policy.
So it's a matter of essentially the government, the oil sands, the industry, and the environment all kind of working together then?
That's right, and also include the Aboriginal groups in the area.
Let's talk about the Aboriginal groups, because CEMA is a representation of some of the Aboriginal groups in the area, like the Fort McMurray Métis. So how do you represent them?
Well, basically they're member organizations, so they have the opportunity to get involved in all of our working groups, and that's how we operate as working groups. And they also get an opportunity to be involved in the governance of the organization. We have a balanced governance structure so that we have caucuses representing government, industry, Aboriginals, and non-government organizations, and they all get to elect 4 people to the board of directors that make the decisions.
And you're not only representing the Aboriginal groups, but the land that the Aboriginal people represent too as well. So how are you helping them protect some of the land?
Well, we made a commitment a long time ago that when we were using Western science to come up with solutions to some of the issues, that we also include traditional knowledge. So we use what we would call a 2 roads approach. So we come at it both from the science side and the traditional knowledge side and blend them together. The other thing we've done is sponsored a lot of research into what is traditional knowledge and how should it be used. We're presently working on a management framework to guide the regulators on how they should respect and use traditional knowledge in a proper way.
So this all comes back to how they're restoring the land then, I guess.
Right. That is probably one of our biggest parts of SEMA is our reclamation end. So we're looking at how this whole area is going to be reclaimed, whether it's a pit to the north or whether it's SAGD to the south or it's an end pit lake, whatever. So we are looking at that. And we produce not only policy documents, but also guidance documents, recipes. How do you create a wetland? How do you do this? How do you do that?
And there is a science behind it, isn't there?
There is a science, and we've also made the effort and successfully of incorporating traditional knowledge into that science.
You were just able to secure 1 year of funding through the government. Was that provincially wide? Or
well, basically it's the government instructing industry. Our funding comes right now 100% from industry.
Okay. So since it's coming from industry, I know you were just in Ottawa just recently to try to secure some federal funding. Right. Is that going to help CEMA going forward?
Well, I think so. One of the complaints industry has is that they're funding so many different things right now. They're funding monitoring agencies, they're funding a new regulatory agency, and they don't want to duplicate their funding. So they're restricting the amount of money available to CEMA, which somewhat doesn't go with what our members want, because they're identifying issues that always exceed what industry is willing to pay.
There's no question, and industry will only pay so much, I guess. Correct. Isn't that correct?
Right. No, that's right. So what we're doing is we're going to the government agencies, both provincial and federal, and saying, look, you benefit, so why not contribute? And, you know, and I think a fair part of it would be if they contributed for all of our administrative costs, because part of the problem when you deal with so many different groups is making sure that you're fair and giving them all equal opportunity to come to meetings, to be involved, and that costs money.
And that is, I guess, an important role. You don't want to just be a dictatorship and tell people what to do. You want to have a majority of parties go in and find out what the proper solution is.
Well, right, and if you look at the spectrum of the 54 members we have, we go from very rich oil companies down to Métis locals that have very few resources. So if you want to level that playing field, you have to help build capacity in some of our members.
There is one argument that there are other governmental agencies that possibly do the same thing as SEMA. So why is SEMA maybe a little bit better in that?
Well, you know what, I've been through this argument many times. we don't do monitoring, so we don't conflict with the monitoring agencies. We don't instill the policy, we just recommend. We are the only organization probably in Canada that takes science, pairs it up with an issue, and the result is a management framework or a recommendation to a regulator saying this is how you should deal with that issue.
So basically, what separates SEMA from these other agencies then?
Well, we don't do anything they do, and they don't do anything we do. And yet we're always being accused of overlapping or duplicating, and yet I've had this argument and nobody can tell me where we duplicate.
Well, that's, I guess, good news for SEMA.
That's right.
How are some of the Aboriginal groups benefiting in Wood Buffalo specifically, say the Fort McMurray Métis from SEMA?
Well, first of all, they're having an input into policy development. Secondly, they're sitting around a table with a number of other members and getting their viewpoints from it. We've formed an Aboriginal coordinating committee that allows the Métis to sit down with the First Nations. That hasn't always been that easy, and it's a strength of voice. The other thing is that they have access to all the data that we create and generate, and so that helps them with their negotiations with individual companies and government agencies.
What are some of the data that you've put in place?
Well, we've gathered a lot of traditional knowledge information and put it into a usable format, put it into geospatial data. So we've taken it from an oral interview and created a map. That's the simple way of looking at it. The other thing is we've created a number of data sets as to where are all the important places in this region, whether it's a recreational, cultural, spiritual. The other thing is reclamation. When we do a reclamation document and we look at criteria and indicators, we don't just look at the science ones, we look at indicators that are important to traditional peoples. So if we need certain types of plants to do reclamation, we can choose, and the First Nations and Métis get to influence which plant species we would identify.
And I guess that with the reclamation process we've seen with Syncrude and different animals and species and plants that come in, that is exactly your role.
Right, well, and also we've been able to have them tell us where are the critical areas. We can look at it from a Western science perspective and say area A is the most important. But when you mix in the traditional knowledge, maybe A isn't that important, B is more important. So.
Has there been any mistakes along the way, like say in the past 20 years where maybe science maybe made a mistake going forward into the reclamation process?
I don't think a mistake would be the best way, but there have been instances where it's been enhanced.
Okay.
As I say, if you're looking at a large landscape, being able to zero in on where are those important areas, having the traditional knowledge plus the Western science gives you a better tools for defining.
Oh, no doubt. And you've put in some environmental stipulations, is that correct?
Well, yeah, guidance documents. We've created a number of guidance documents, and some of them, it's been as simple as our cover's been ripped off, the government cover's been on, and it's policy.
Oh, okay. Are there any issues that you kind of want to discuss that are affecting SEMA currently right now in Fort McMurray that you kind of want to bring up?
Well, beyond the funding one, I think the important one is for the people in Wood Buffalo to understand that this is an opportunity through the various organizations that are part of SEMA to be involved, to have an actual voice into what's going on. Because that's one of the things I hear constantly is everything's happening and all the decisions are made in Edmonton or Ottawa. Very few are made here. We know that development has gone so quickly that Fort McMurray suffered socially, economically, environmentally. So this is an opportunity for some local input into these things, and also it allows a dialogue with the people that are actually intimately involved, the oil companies and the government regulators, because a lot of them, like regulators, may never even see this area.
So you're saying it's more important for local voices to step up into this regard?
Absolutely, through different organizations. You know, we have some local environmental organizations, we have local Aboriginal organizations involved here. The municipality is a member of SEMA.
It makes sense because, as you said, people from Edmonton, Calgary, even Toronto, I assume, and Ottawa have input into these decisions, and they don't step foot in Fort McMurray. They don't know the livelihood, the community, the environmental factors that kind of go into what makes this region such a great place.
I think the other thing to let people know is our website, every report we've done is there. We have a library that's easy to go through. There's over 300 reports there. There's data sets. And we have a lot of people from all over the world who have contacted us and said, man, that stuff you posted is great.
And what is the website?
It's SEMAonline.ca.
And of course, SEMA Online also shows all your objectives, your goals, who you represent, and everything like that, right?
And all the members. We try and because our membership is right across Alberta, we try and have meetings Edmonton, Calgary, and Fort McMurray. So we encourage our members from Calgary and Edmonton to come to Fort McMurray and see what it's really all about.
And Fort McMurray is a great place, right?
It is. It's a very good place.
Well, Glenn, thank you very much for joining us today on Mingling with the Municipality. Of course, if you have a question for our guest or organization, use the hashtag AskShawYMM on Twitter, or you can visit our Facebook page. Craig Momney is hosting the next Mingling with the Municipality, so feel free to reach out to him on Twitter if you have a question for a local leader or organization on our distinguished program. I'm Doug Roxburgh, and we'll see you, when we see you.